Paint the Universe, the podcast for artists, episode 4, and I'm here with Jorge Hurtado, aka Anomaly. How we doing, man?
Good, man. How you doing today?
Good. Stoked to finally sit down, you know?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Super appreciate it.
Of course. We first chatted earlier this year at Infrasound, right? To click up. It just didn't align at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That was your first year performing there this year, right?
So no, it actually wasn't. The first time that I performed was when it came back after COVID. So I think it was 2021 is when I went. And I wasn't officially on the lineup. I actually went with my buddy Ivan, who goes by IB Visuals. Mm-hmm. He was doing a couple sets, and he invited me to go with them to do a little back-to-back action. And we ended up doing Mimosa at the Hangar. So that was my first time VJing at Infrasound, and I think I also did a couple late-night sets at the Dome or at the Hangar later that weekend too. But my first official billing would be the year after that. The name escapes me of who I performed for that year, but the guy who usually coordinates all the VJs, Devin, who goes by Clearvoid, nicest dude I've met in a really long time, especially in the industry. Huge advocate for VJs, and he takes really good care of us at Infrasound. So all the years that I have been playing there, minus this most recent one, he's usually the guy who hooks it up for me, and everybody else typically. And yeah, great guy, great production team. Obviously, Infrasound vibes are very special, as you know. But yeah, that was my first time, and then my most recent time was this past year, not this one, but the year before, this year with Schmoop on main stage. So that was the only set that I did this year.
Well, primetime slot, right?
Yeah, primetime slot. It was like right before Mefjus, and then I forget who was closing. I think it was EPROM who was closing out the main stage that night. So it was like a 9 o'clock time slot. He was super stoked about it, and then I was super stoked about it, getting a nice time slot, because usually like playing during the day, or it's like late night in the Hangar. So I was really stoked to get to rip the main stage for sure.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Infrasound's been leading it as far as like VJ representation, man, of like putting you at the forefront. I mean, that's spread across the scene. I see a lot now, highlighted, whether it's like on the lineup or promotional material, really pushing it. I think it's awesome. Did you go to the Equinox this year then too, or no?
No, so I didn't go to Equinox this year. I went last year for that. And then I went the year before that, I believe, or the most recent times that they had Equinox minus this one. I liked Equinox a lot. I love fall weather. It does get a little colder at night sometimes, for sure. Yeah. But, the vibes are totally different from summertime. They're still amazing, don't get me wrong. But it seems to just be a little bit more chill, a little bit more low-key. And then they definitely bring out more, in my opinion, a little bit more like interesting artists that you wouldn't expect to see.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you just landed out here today from Chicago. Mm-hmm. You got the Uda show this weekend at the Fox Theater.
Yep.
With Shakedown Productions, right?
Yep.
Awesome. And you created the flyer for that as well, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So you created the still frame and then brought into it, or what?
Yeah, so I just made the still frame in Cinema 4D and then using Octane to render it out. So that was pretty fun process to work with Uga and his management, and then also Shakedown Productions, just all of us working together to get an idea out. And I'm super happy with how it landed. I thought it came out really good. And we're also making posters to commemorate the weekend too, so I'm pretty stoked to see them in person.
Awesome. First time working with Shakedown too?
Yeah, totally. He hit me up earlier this year about it. It kind of came out of nowhere personally. So I was selling these 3D printed keychains that I made and like stickers, and he hit me up about it, wanting to grab some, and then like a couple conversations later, he just was like, "Hey, you doing anything on this date? I have this idea." I'm just like, "Oh, this sounds awesome. Let me know the details." And then, he hit me back up later that day, or not later that day, later that time, to solidify the details, and here we are. So cool. super stoked on the opportunity for sure.
Awesome. I've been seeing Uda's name pop up everywhere now, especially these past couple months. A show just announced in Detroit with Resonant Language too.
Oh, yeah. Right?
That looks killer. I saw that you performed with Resonant a little while ago, right?
With Resident Language?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually performed with him twice. So the first time I got to play with him in Milwaukee at the Miramar Theater. He brought me out personally for that show, so that was awesome. Alejo also played there as well. That was a super dope set. And then a couple other local guys. Really good time there. And then after that, he did a show with Cursa, I believe. Cursa was the headlining act, and then Reslang was the support act. And again, he brought me out personally to do his visuals. So I had the chance to work with him 2 times. Both of them have been awesome, and I'm a pretty big fan of his music, and he's a super cool guy as well. So always a pleasure to work with him.
Cool. Was that show with NSW then?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, awesome. I've only been on the outskirts. I've never attended their shows. I've seen the merger happen over the past couple of years, and they've been absolutely killing it.
Yeah, totally. They do a really good job at throwing shows that cater to, the bass music that we're into. I would say they're probably the biggest to do it in Chicago, and maybe one or if not of 2 who really do it. But they were separated to begin with. It was Notion Presents and then Swamp Hoover Productions.
Yep.
And then eventually they just merged, I think the past 2 years, 2 or 3 years maybe. So after combining forces, I thought it was a smart move on their part because, why not? And yeah, they're definitely continuously pushing the scene in Chicago for sure.
How do you feel about the state of music and art in Chicago? Specifically the electronic scene.
Yes, for sure. So, I was going to say that before you said electronic scene, there's just so much going on in Chicago all the time, especially when it comes to the arts. But specifically in the electronic music, I think it's really, I wouldn't say it's stagnant at the moment, but there's a lot of repeat incidents that are happening. So it's kind of, the same people who are on tours coming through Chicago, whether it's, in the beginning of the year or during the summer or the fall tours and stuff like that. So you get a lot of the big name acts that are playing, a lot of the acts who people are familiar with, a lot of things that you can expect basically. But there are moments where there's opportunities to go see people who you've never seen before or thought you would never see before. So it's a little bit of mixture. There's always new, fresh stuff that is happening, mixed in with the stuff that's you can expect, basically.
It's always changing, I'm sure. And
yeah,
just like NSW representing, maybe not the most known acts, bringing them out and shedding a light on them.
Yeah, they do a great job at doing that. I mean, most recently, they started doing a new show series at the nightclub that they typically throw shows at Primary. They've had a couple cool artists that came through recently.
For the Sub Club, is it?
So that's a different thing. So the Sub Club, that's another thing that I was going to mention. So Primary is a small club in Chicago where they typically throw their shows at. It's I don't know how big the cap is, but it's more like an intimate setting, and they have, their big artists or small artists to come through. I think the most recent show that I had my attention was Cursa, who played there, which was pretty cool. And then before that, the one that I went to, it was On Hell. Then that was a really good time. But yeah, like you mentioned, Sub Club. That's I've never been to any of those, but I definitely is on my radar, and I would love to go to one that sparks my interest. But I think it's in some person's living room with these huge speakers and just people just playing music. I think the last artist that they had recently was Youngsta.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that popped off, but yeah, those are and that was kind of what I had in mind when I was thinking or when I was mentioning that there are opportunities to see things that are unique. Those two were the things that came to mind first.
Awesome. Yeah. Got an eye on Chicago for sure. I've only been a couple times over the years. Not somewhere I've particularly felt drawn back to, I guess. The music and art scene is thriving.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see that, though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Chicago's a great city. There's so much to do all the time. It's really diverse, and there's a lot of culture to experience. So I don't know. I like to think there's something there for everybody. So if you have the opportunity to come back and visit, I would hop on that for sure.
Absolutely. We just started to talk a little bit about like Cinema 4D. I know you work in touch designer as well, right? What's some of your history of getting into all these programs, you know?
Yeah, sure. So I first started doing graphic design in high school with Photoshop. That was like my first time experiencing that was sophomore year of high school. So that was probably like 2008, 2009. And it was a graphic design class. It was selected as an elective amongst other courses, but I decided to pick that just because it seemed like the most interesting, and it was working with computers. And growing up, I was big into video games, playing on consoles, playing on computers. So it just felt like, the natural thing to gravitate towards. It's like, oh, you got to make stuff with computers. All right, I'll check this out, see what's up with it. So that's pretty much what started it all. And then after that, I just stuck with Photoshop and Illustrator for the longest time, just really working in 2D space, really. And it wasn't until I would say probably like 2018, 2019, that I first opened up Cinema 4D and getting really into that. And then around that same time is when I started using Touch Designer as well. But that program is super insane and very beyond me at some time. So there came to a point where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with it. I don't know what I'm making. And these ideas in my hand, I can't really get them out. Whereas in Cinema 4D, I had a much easier time to create stuff. So I put Touch Designer on the back end for a while. I got back into it within, this past year, I want to say year and a half. Solely because of two things. The first one being this one toolkit developed by my buddy Jack, Anti-Alias. He made basically a VJ mixer inside Touch Designer. So that really put a fire under my butt to be like, all right, I need to know this program. I need to understand it more, and I want to start utilizing it more in my sets. And then also on top of that, there's this other person. I think his name is Tommy. He goes by Tect. He made this toolkit called RayTK. And basically what it is, it's just you're able to create RayMarch renders using nodes inside Touch Designer. That's what I mostly use these days, not only RayTK, but just Touch Designer as a whole. In my VJ sets, live as well, also just making visuals. I don't really do too much Cinema 4D, mainly because waiting for renders.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What was there a point or an inspiration that brought you into the VJ world? Because it's easy to just sit in your room and create digital art, you know?
Yeah, I would say I've always been interested in stage production and the visuals that I see at concerts and stuff, but it wasn't up until people around me and my close friends started to get into the VJ world, specifically my friend Ivan, who I mentioned earlier, Ivy Visuals. He started getting into it, and I saw him do it and succeed at it, and it inspired me to do the same, basically. It was kind of like, well, if he can do it, I can do this too, basically. And he helped me a lot, and he still helps me a lot today. Also, people who helped me out earlier just to get my foot in the door, and also just to understand what's going on. My buddy Andres, he goes by Clicks, and my other buddy Pat, he goes by Neocord. And I would say those three guys really helped me a lot to really push myself into the VJ world and get where I'm at today, for sure.
Awesome. That's totally had close friends leading the way there.
Yeah, for sure.
And you have a collab project with Ivan, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So that's why I say we still help each other today. I don't know how it happened. I've known Ivan for a really long time. We grew up in similar areas. His cousin went to the same high school that I did. He was in the same grade as me, so we kind of had similar friend groups. But then we just started hanging out more frequently because of the VJ stuff, basically. And then he's now had become one of my best friends. So very, very fortunate for that whole situation and to be able to experience this with him as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any words to say, an aspiring VJ who may see someone like you getting these bookings, traveling across the country? Do you have any words to support them in the beginning of their journey?
Man, that's a great question. I mean, honestly, I would just say know your worth, stick to your guns, and just don't quit. You know, um, I would say those are all kind of generic stuff, but like at the end of the day, those are the three things that I really stick by and that helped me personally get to where I'm at, amongst other things. But I think those would be the most important ones that I would offer as advice for sure.
Awesome. As far as like the duo project with Ivan, do you find it like a different dynamic when you're performing with somebody else? Do you like it in different ways? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So the dynamic is totally different. For me, I feel like it makes me a lot more comfortable because now I have somebody to back me up and I have somebody who can support me. Not the whole stress is on me, which is, makes me very comfortable and puts me at ease.
The weight of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I have somebody to fall back on when I need to, which is, very beneficial in a lot of different ways. But the dynamic is really interesting because Ivan, he's more of a performer, I would say, versus like a content creator like myself. So the areas that he really shines in would be like how he mashes up clips, how he uses effects, more so recently how he visualizes the stage and how he sets up the images on them, things of that nature. Kind of more of a technical aspect that I sometimes fall short on. So, he has a really good eye on that aspect, and we elevate each other a lot because, I feed him stuff that he likes to use, and he, sometimes he points out, hey, use this clip now, or like, hey, do this now. And I think he has a really good understanding of like what I do and how my style is that he's able to direct pretty well. And, I'm confident in his call outs all the time. So it's just like, hey, you tell me what to do. I'm just here for the ride. And all the times that we have performed too with each other have always been really great for sure.
Cool. I can imagine you guys get a kick out of it. You have history together. You can read each other and just set each other up.
Yeah, totally. I think like it definitely is a whole different vibe for sure. And it's like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just a different flow state, It's like when you have somebody there to help you and then make decisions, and then not only just like in general, but like right there on the spot too. It just adds such a dynamic to it, and I enjoy it a lot more than just doing it myself. And Ivan, like I say, he's one of my best friends. So any opportunity that we have to work with each other is always great.
Awesome. There's power in numbers there,
yeah,
dude. And I see you're a member of Neuro.Studio. Is it? What's your involvement been like with them?
Yeah. So I have been there. Not since the very beginning, but since some of the early stages of Neuro.Studio. I think they're about maybe like 2 or 3 years old now. They kind of first started to get together like a little post-COVID, basically. So I don't have too much involvement in it right now, but I would say I have a similar involvement to most people who are in it, whereas like everybody has a voice, everybody can participate in some form, and everybody can see what's going on. So I would say I'm not like super active in it, but I'm able to do so pretty much whenever I want to.
I guess I never understood if it was kind of like unionizing like the visual arts side of live events. Is that what kind of like the mission statement is? And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I would say like, so the mission statement, it's I would say it's kind of like unionizing, not necessarily the live production, but just like artists. And I use artists very loosely because, it could be any type of artist. It could be painters. It could be like jewelry people. It could be people who are into clothing, artists like you and I. So it's really anybody who finds themselves artistic. But not only that, anybody who finds themselves just like looking to join a group for a greater cause. So we have people who aren't artists at all, but they're really good at understanding how to market, or they're really good at like financial stuff and, kind of the bigger picture things. So I wouldn't say it's just for artists. It's pretty much open to whoever's interested. And then there's so many different aspects to Neuro.Studio. I feel most people can find something that they're able to contribute to. And participate to as well. So I would say like it's definitely an interesting concept to grasp, but I would say you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's kind of like a unionization of instead of artists, I would just say like people, like creatives is what I would say. Yeah.
Awesome. The collectives can be very powerful in that way. I mean, it makes me think of Genesis Art Collective too.
Oh yeah.
Been absolutely killing it.
Yeah,
Shout
for
out
sure.
Hayden on
Yeah,
that too.
shout out Hayden. Yeah, shout out Hayden. He's a super great guy. It's very inspiring to see what he's doing with the whole Genesis Art Project, and he is definitely on the come up for sure. And he has a great future ahead of him for how young not only he is, but just how young his Genesis Art Collective is as well. So really interested to see how that comes.
Absolutely, he's doing something beautiful, bringing the community together.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just talking too about the Producer podcast based out of Chicago too. That it's kind of doing the same. They've been doing the live interviews at Lunar Tide this year.
Mm-hmm.
Big inspiration personally too on there. Yeah, I think we could shed more light, more people. Maybe not at the highest level of the artistry.
Yeah.
And yeah, Genesis is doing an awesome job at that. So yeah, what other shows have you had so far this year then out of state? Too?
Oh, out of state. So the only other show that I had out of state was I did a show in Baltimore earlier this year. Head Nod Productions put that one on, and it was Super Task headlining. My buddy Time Visuals did his set for that. Time Visuals, he's one of my personal favorite artists. He does crazy work, and he also works in Touch Designer as well too. Okay. So that's where majority of my inspiration comes from, just him being able to work in my software that I do. I feel like we're kind of like a niche group of people, at least in the VJ side of things, who work with Touch Designer. So it's always cool to see other people use that software. And then Artifacts also played. He was the support act. And my buddy Connor, Smudge Visuals, he did his set. And then after that, it was me who did it was like, they were on tour basically. So it was like Charles Nimbus, Chez, or Cheese. I don't know how people say his name, and I think it's kind of a joke.
I'm wondering
at
too.
This point.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say Chaz for the sake of the conversation, and then also Crawdad Sniper. So they were kind of doing like a little tour, and
the Three of a Kind tour.
The Three of a Kind tour, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So they ended up being together in Baltimore, and I got to do their set. And then it was just my first time in Baltimore, my first time playing on the East Coast. It was a good time for sure. I really liked that spot. Awesome lineup and awesome crew to work with for sure.
How do you feel about travel nowadays? Do you enjoy it? Is it taxing?
I both for sure. Yeah, it really depends. Like I like to travel personal for fun. I like to go see the world, go experience different cultures, all that stuff. I haven't traveled too much for VJing. It's usually like festivals, if anything. Secret Dreams, Infrasound are the ones that I usually go to. This is only really my second show that I've like traveled to that's not a festival. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. It's always cool to work with artists and the promotion companies, different types of production, and just to really, see where my art can take me physically. So it's always fun times.
Awesome. Was that your first year out at Secret Dreams this year then? Or did you go
I went last year actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went last year. Last year I got to perform with Schmoop. That was the first time. Well, technically my second time VJing for him. But that set really like established our relationship with each other, and that's mostly the reason why he brought me to Infrasound the following year. Okay. And then I went again this year. So Secret Dreams was my second time this year.
It's a beautiful reminder that you don't know where relationships or a conversation could lead. Dude, I mean, that's something that I've driven home with this podcast.
Yeah,
even,
totally.
Like not knowing who's seeing what or where I say it can reach little corners.
Yeah,
of the
totally.
World, dude. And yeah, we only talked a little bit about the pods earlier. So you're not super into like listening to them on your own, really?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm not into it. It's more so I haven't really found anything that caught my interest. I'm very open to the idea, but at the moment, there's nothing really that I listen to like outside of music.
Yeah, it's growing. I mean, maybe something will come across your path.
Yeah, totally.
On that, yeah, YouTube. I feel like I do for a lot of my watching across the board. It's so instant. It's up to date. It's happening. It's now. I feel like it drives a lot of points.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So for Secret Dreams, you're with Cohen. What was it last year?
Yeah, so for this Secret Dreams, I did a set with Cohen Sound. And then I also did a set for Player Dave. And then I also did a set for 5 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was cool. Secret Dreams, I don't know if you know, but they have like decreased sound once it starts to get later in the day, or later in the night, excuse me, into the morning. So like for Player Dave and 5 a.m., it was like a little bit quieter than it was typically during the day. So that adds a whole different vibe and dynamic to the sets, but they were still both super fun. And then Cohen Sound had like it was pretty much like a sunset set that day. And I don't know, I've been listening to Cohen Sound that was like one of the first electronic artists that I really got into and listened to. So it was awesome not only to see them, but get to VJ for them. Well, it was only one of them, but yeah.
Cool. It was only the Polychrome album that really stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't listened to much of their work lately. They released an album this year, or an EP.
I think yeah.
Go check that out.
Uh-huh.
Interested in that too. Yeah, not super in tune to them, but they have some wild sound design.
Yeah, I would say I think that's what they're really known for, is like their sound design. They don't really play too many shows, but they do. I think it's like a Patreon or something, where a lot of people I know are like tapped into that, and they learn a lot of stuff. They're great teachers, and yeah, their sound design is definitely one of the top, at least in my opinion.
Cool. I didn't know they had a Patreon. It's kind of few and far between where like somebody in the electronic scene has like a bump in Patreon where like they're actively releasing content, and I think it's a cool way to supplement income. I mean, spread awareness to an artist, at any level, just like with YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Just like being able to use that as another means, as a job, basically. So props to them for being able to do that, for sure.
Working with the times. I mean, yeah, as much as I don't like chopping up content or these conversations, I think, just getting little snippets can really get somebody hooked.
Oh yeah, totally.
Even like what's it called? The little clip that pulled up for you after my podcast. Something like that can get you going on there. See, I was looking back at some of your collabs work too. You had a collab piece with Glass Crane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How did that all come together, and what's your relationship been like on there?
Yeah. So basically our relationship started, we're like in this massive group chat on Facebook that my buddy Ethan Nox Lumina started, I think like during COVID. It was for this one stream that was happening. I think it was like a Couch Collective or Couch Fam stream that was happening. So he was one of the people who organized all the VJs to do those live stream sets, and that's kind of how that group was born. I was never a part of that stuff, but I came after the fact, and a lot of the people who were there originally are still there. So how I got into that group chat, I forget exactly how. It might have been through Ivan or some other friend of mine. But we were kind of just in that group chat. There's a lot of us just, banter, but also, helping each other out with whatever questions we may have, whether it's, VJ related, production related, software related, and, anything really. And let's see, it kind of started us talking just like through mutual friends, really just having a couple conversations, whether it was like in Discord or something, just like hanging on Discord, bantering with each other while we're making art and stuff. And I actually do have to give credit to Ivan for starting that idea of making a collab. It was at Infrasound, last year, I think, or 2 years ago when Steven and I were there. And it was just us three, and I think somebody or some other people was with us, and we were all just talking. And Ivan just threw out the idea. He's like, hey, you guys should collab. And we kind of just looked at each other, and it's like, being friends, we're just like, yeah, totally, let's do it. If you say that to any people, they'll have the same reaction. I never really thought anything of it. I'm just like, yeah, like it'll happen when it happens. I view Steven as a very inspiring person, not only for my art, but also just like where you can get to in career-wise as like not only VJ, but also just like a digital artist. So yeah, I don't know. That's basically how the idea started. And then after the fact, I think I just hit him up and be like, hey, dude, like, do you want to actually start this collab? There's a couple things that I'm sitting on that I think you could really bring to the next level. He mostly works in this program called Notch, which was something that I used a couple years ago, but I never really did anything too much with it. It's a really expensive piece of hardware, or I'm sorry, a really expensive piece of software. And since I wasn't utilizing it too much, I was like, all right, well, I'm just kind of throwing money away at this point. So I stopped subscribing to it. But I had some old stuff sitting around, and I was like, well, maybe Steven could make something out of this. And yeah, I showed him the base of that piece basically, and the stuff that he did was like a lot of the camera movements, the materials, some of the lighting. He pretty much just like polished it off and like took it to the next level, really. But that's like the story about that collaboration. And yeah, Steven and I would say we're friends for sure.
Awesome. I've seen a bit of his work in person out here when he did some shows at Threda.
Oh, okay.
He did some physical pieces, or it was projection mapping on the physical, I believe. Yeah, interesting. At this point in your life, what are some goals for you inside or outside of your art career that you're striving towards right now?
Yeah, I would say like at least art wise, just like kind of just continue what I'm doing, but also doing it strategically. So I would say this last year is when I started getting a lot more bookings and a lot more momentum for myself as a VJ. And this year was realizations of those effects. And now I'm kind of just like, coming to the end of the year, kind of just like looking back and reflecting and be like, all right, like, these are the things that worked. These are the things that didn't work. These are the things that I could do differently, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of just like continuously moving forward, but just with more of a clear idea of like what I want to do. And what I want to do is just like, continue just to do more shows. I'm a big believer of quality versus quantity. And I'm also in a financial position because I have a normal job where I can reject and take VJ opportunities that make sense for me or don't make sense for me. That's something that I always tell people about, especially when they're starting, especially when it comes to bookings. It's a really interesting conversation when you start talking about money, because everybody has an opinion on it. But at the end of the day, I think you should just do what makes sense for you, whether that means getting something monetary or getting something monetary at a lesser value and getting other things on top of that, whatever that may be. Everybody's situation is different. But everybody should be getting paid fairly. So yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think a person like myself should be taking gigs for free necessarily, but of course there's always different circumstances for the situations. But yeah, just like art wise, I'd say that's my goal at the moment. Outside of that, just like, I don't know, continuously just like living a healthy life, really, like mentally, physically. And yeah, just like, I don't know, just keep living life basically.
I liked what you pointed out about not knowing, where an artist may be in their life or career, where maybe they have to take this book and that compromises them mentally or financially, that they don't feel good about. I've done that. I've had VJ gigs where I'm halfway through the night and I don't feel good about standing here and performing for a dollar amount. Yeah, I want artists to have that freedom, and it's tough when we're relying on a booker and we're trying to be a certain way to get chosen. That it can be a toxic dynamic.
For booking. Sure. Yeah. I mean, that whole what you're speaking about can be very toxic and very discouraging. I see it all the time, not only with myself, with a lot of my peers, and I'm very fortunate to have like a good job where I can say no to bookings that don't make sense for me, whatever it may be, whatever the offer may be. I think that's a powerful thing to have as an artist, because you're able to establish value for yourself, and then you're also able to take opportunities that are actually worth your time and effort. Sometimes you do have to take a L. Sometimes you do have to be in the red because of an opportunity is just too good to pass up. Those are totally understandable and acceptable. And, again, everything is super different for everybody. So for us to comment and say, hey, don't do this because of X, Y, and Z, it's really hard because of everybody's circumstances, But again, I think at the end of the day, you just got to do what makes sense for you.
I see a lot of promoters, artists advocating for that now. A lot of transparency is being pushed, which is beautiful, I think.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people do push for transparency, and I know at least amongst like my friend group, we try to give each other's ideas and like, hey, this is how much I'm getting booked from this person. I think you could probably get something similar or something close to it. It gives, I think a lot of the time people think they can take advantage of artists because it's like, hey, I know you want to be at this show, so I'm going to give you this offer because I know that, And a lot of the times, yeah, that's going to be the case. It's like, hey, this festival that I want to go to, that not only will I perform for artists that I really like, but I'll also see all my friends. I can use it as a vacation, et cetera, et cetera. So, they definitely can take advantage of the circumstances, but you just got to be aware of like what you're doing and the repercussions of that.
I love to hear you guys are talking about it. I think, not like the unionization, but just standing behind something, together.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there are predatory promoters. I mean, people who want to put together a show for the dollar amount, and the VJ might be the bottom of that list.
Yeah,
sadly.
I would say like 9 out of 10 times it is. And it's interesting because we're one of the few people who are there at the start of the show, not only at the start, but like, when people are putting up the production, let's say, or whatever it may be, and we're one of the last people to leave. Yep. To me, that doesn't really make much sense of why we're getting paid lesser than everybody else. Sometimes we're there longer than the promoters are, or sometimes the promoters aren't even there at all for whatever case. But yeah, I am a big advocate for fair pay, and also, just being understanding of the circumstances that you're putting yourself in.
Awesome. Love to hear that, dude.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, for the Uhnomaly project, do you have any pieces coming up, performances that you're looking forward to
So like the way that I approach pieces, it's kind of just like sporadically. Whenever I find inspiration, I'm just like, all right, I'm going to take this time to sit at the computer and either work on some stuff that I've been working on in the past, or maybe start something new, or whatever it may be. So at the moment, it's kind of just polishing some things that I've been working on over the summer. The next performance that I do have, it's kind of still in the talks about right now. It's a show in Chicago that Ivan and I could be potentially doing. But the one that's for sure happening is going to be next year in Detroit for the Mana Collective event that Resident Language is headlining. So I had the pleasure of playing their show last year and going with Ivan and a couple other of my friends, and it was a great time. I love Detroit as a city, so I'm really looking forward to returning back for that one.
Awesome. Do you kind of just like strike when an emotion or feeling is hot and go into a piece, or what is your mindset typically then?
Yeah, so I would say like I'm a big person who strives on motivation. So if I have a show coming up, then it's just like, all right, I need to make something new, or like, all right, I need to figure out, the places that I'm feeling a little left behind on or whatever, and that gets me focused. But if it's like I don't have anything coming up, or I'm like in between like months where like shows are happening, then it's kind of just like it's more of on the back end for me. But yeah, that's kind of like how it has been for me lately.
Do you ever feel stuck in your art? I guess like you're not making enough quick enough, or do you battle with that feeling at all?
So I'm not really worried about like quickness or time really. The moments where I do feel stuck, it's more so coming from like having a fresh new idea, fresh and new to myself, not necessarily, oh, nobody has seen this ever before. So those are the moments where I do feel stuck and where I do feel struggle from. And I think, every creative person meets that point at one point or another.
Yeah, I mean, it's somebody hearing you just admit that might help them get through a rut.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, it's part of the process. There's been times where I haven't opened up any creative software in like months, just because of whatever reasons, life be life, and sometimes. And then at the sudden moment, I just get like a surge of inspiration. But something that has helped me understand the creative process is sometimes you just gotta do it, not necessarily with the goal that you're gonna finish something, but more so get yourself back into that creative flow. So like if I've taken time off from making things in Touch Designer, I'll just be like, all right, I'm gonna open it up, see what I can do with it, and then hopefully that ignites the juices again.
Yeah, they're two different mindsets, and I felt them both. One where I like have this idea, eager to hop in the software, and the other one where I'm just like sitting down, clocking in, and being there.
Yeah.
And seeing, what comes through me at that point. Weird balance in the middle.
Yeah, it's really weird balance. Now that I'm thinking about it, I would say the most recent struggle or stuckness that I had was actually making the poster for Uga, because I was working in Cinema 4D and I haven't used that program in like months, almost like a year, let's say. Yeah. And they asked me to do that. I'm just like, all right, time to open it back up. And it was just like, iteration after iteration after iteration, not necessarily because they wanted to see changes, but more so just because it's like, I was getting back into the swing of things, really just like, all right, like, I'm starting to remember how to do these things. And it's like, okay, now I can conceptualize this idea a little bit better. And then also working with them too, just like giving me feedback as I go along. But that was the most recent time where I was just like struggling with a stuckness, basically.
Do you like that direction in projects, or you like more like complete creative control?
Both, for sure. So me personally, if I'm doing like a commission, I do not like it when somebody's like, hey, do whatever you want, That to me it doesn't go anywhere, because what I like can be totally different than what you like. Or, if I make something that spent, like 2-3 days on, and then I give it to you and you're like, no, like this isn't what I wanted. Just like, okay, well, thanks. I just wasted both of our times, Yeah. So I think open-ended things like that aren't helpful for me when I'm creating stuff for other people. I like direction a lot, and feedback too. It's super helpful and just makes the process a lot easier.
Yeah, a bit of direction where to take it.
Yeah, exactly. Just like where to take it. And, a lot of the times I don't necessarily need like, here's like a drawing of exactly what I want, just make it 3D. It's more so just like, hey, like these are the colors that I'm thinking, or like this is kind of the general scene that I have in my mind, just like something to go off of, It could like be anything.
5 words and I can take it from
here. Yeah, exactly.
Dude.
5 words. It could even be 2 words, like sunny afternoon or something like that. Give me something to work off of. All the times that I've had trouble with clients, it has been just like, yeah, do whatever you want. Those have mostly been more troublesome than fruitful, for sure.
Yeah. I struggled with that commissions too, and laying down the boundaries, we can talk about what we want to go into this project, and we have 3 iterations, but beyond that, I can't give this the time or energy.
Yeah, totally.
We can't just keep going back and forth, and I don't feel good about the product that I'm giving out. And it's just not good for anybody at that point.
Totally. It's good to have those parameters and also those boundaries too, because it helps you and that person stay on track, and then also like understand the end goal that we're trying to reach, And
get there together.
Exactly.
With the client.
Right. And that's what the whole thing is about, So it's like you want to start on the right foot so then you can end on the right foot,
Making them happy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Awesome. Sweet. Anything else you want to touch on right now, man? You feeling here?
Let's see.
We can give a shout to your socials too, of course, on here.
Oh yeah, I mean sure. Most of my socials, you can see them at Uhnomaly, so at UHNOMALY. Mostly Attigo on like Instagram. Not a whole lot on Facebook these days because the algorithm, I suppose.
True.
But yeah, I'd say that's pretty much all I got to talk about.
Sweet. We've got the Uda show coming up this Friday at the Fox, right?
Yep, Uga show coming up Friday.
Aiming to get this out in the morning so then we can carry it through the weekend, and kind of give some eyes on you to everyone attending even, dude. That's what I really want.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's coming up quick, and, not only am I performing, but also a bunch of other super awesome visual artists are performing too. Good friends of mine and also inspirations of mine too. So, dithylamide, organism.
I feel that.
Yeah, organism, AV. I mean the whole crew out there in the music artists too. It's gonna be a great week, and I'm really really stoked that Shakedown Productions Tucker was able to bring us all together. So it'll be a good time.
Awesome. We'll keep an eye out from there, man.
Yeah.
I'll drop a link to your socials below, and I appreciate you sitting down with me, Jorge, man.
Cool. Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course. All right. Take care, guys.
Peace.